Hello, welcome to another segment of Fundy Tidings. I'm your host, Jay Remer, and with me today is Pat Stafford. Welcome back to the show, Pat.
Thanks for having me back.
I always enjoy having Pat here. She's the coordinator for Vibrant Communities, Charlotte County, and it's a program that has been ongoing now for about 4 years. And the name is rebranded from Charlotte County Inclusion Network for those of you who are familiar with that. But it's a very exciting initiative that I am always impressed with initiatives that come from the government that are good ideas. I think, and it's not that there aren't a lot of good ideas that are initiated, but this is a particularly good one because I think that it's finally reached its kind of level of importance as far as priorities within the government.
Right. Yeah, it's an innovative approach that they've taken, which is always good to see. And I think even though the provincial plan's been going for 4 years, the local community inclusion networks have only been at it for about between 18 months and 2 to 2.5 years. And we're already seeing some really promising, movements. I think things that lead us to believe that it can be incredibly powerful going forward in terms of reducing poverty.
Well, and I think the thing is too that there are one of the more remarkable aspects of it is that it is overseen by 5 different departments, which is unusual, and I think that indicates to me the complexity of the problem or the issue. And it also indicates the level of importance that the government views it.
Right.
And I think that's good. And the fact that they are currently renewing the whole thing indicates, and I think that they will fund it, indicates that they understand the problem as a long-term one that will need continual funding, and hopefully they'll begin to see that the funding that they're putting in saves them money in other areas, that are a direct result of poverty. So poverty reduction, I think, it's an important.
It is, and it's being recognized by the Province of New Brunswick, which is great. They established this arm's length Crown Corporation called Economic and Social Inclusion Corporation, and they oversee the 12 community inclusion networks that were created across the province, of which we are one. And so by doing that, not only did they recognize the importance of the issue, but they also recognize that there needs to be new approaches to poverty reduction, and that yes, there are things that need to be done at the policy level, but there are also things that need to be done at the community level, and so that's kind of where.
Well, I think the idea of dividing the province into 12 sections, it sort of speaks to handing the responsibility of managing these programs to the individual communities, which of course is much more effective than one large lump. Today we want to focus on one of the aspects of reducing poverty which Charlotte County is dealing with, and that's Charlotte County Reads, which is an initiative to try to reduce adult literacy issues, which are profound, really, in the province. I know that you're familiar with a lot of the statistics, but I was really quite impressed with the significance of the problem, and I think that our viewers would be too. Could you just share a little bit of that?
Sure. We have actually they've just completed a new survey. It has a big long name. I won't even go into it because nobody will remember it. But the data from that is still not broken down to the level of New Brunswick. So we're still referring back to the earlier survey that was done called the International Adult Literacy Skills Survey. And that basically showed that about 50% of the population of New Brunswick have challenges with functional literacy. And just to be clear about what functional literacy is, it's about all those very practical everyday tasks that we have to undertake, both in literacy and numeracy every day to just get by, whether it be for social purposes, for shopping, errands, and so on, or it be for work even. So 50% is significant. I mean, that
huge.
50% below a level, that means that they've labeled it functional literacy, below a level at which they can perform all these daily activities with ease. Mm-hmm. So for some people it might just be certain kinds of tasks that they have challenges with, and for other people it would be every task that they would be challenged with.
And that, of course, leads to a lack of opportunity, or there are fewer opportunities available to people who struggle with that kind of thing, and therefore a reduced income and an entrance into poverty, which is very demoralizing, I should think.
Demoralizing, frustrating. I mean, it leads to other issues such as health issues. So there's lots of research that demonstrates that income levels are clearly linked with education levels, and that people with low literacy levels are more likely to be ill, have more health problems. Mm-hmm. They're certainly going to be unemployed for longer. Yeah. They're more likely to lose their jobs in a time of attrition, like we've seen. So lots of implications. But there are also lots of other reasons why people would want to think about improving their reading and their writing skills. I mean, we can all improve our reading and writing skills, because it's a continuum, right? Yeah. So we don't talk in terms of literacy and illiteracy anymore. Everybody has some skills these days, and it's just a case of how far you've taken those skills. Yeah,
I suppose even for people who might like to read bedtime stories to their children, might face challenges. Yeah.
I've been involved in adult literacy for way longer than I care to admit on TV. And many of the people that I've worked with have been motivated by having their first child and the wanting to be able to read to them, and then as time progresses, being able to help them with their homework, and so on. So that's a strong motivator. Yeah,
it is. It's really remarkable when you think about what it would be like not to be to have struggles like reading and doing keeping track of your finances could be a nightmare, because those are rather complex concepts, at least for me they are, and even in the simplest form. So I know that arithmetic is a problem, and if you don't do it right, it's not like there's somebody there to say, "Oh, you missed that one."
Right,
and it happens.
Basic math is actually an even greater challenge for the province than literacy, because whereas there's about 50% who struggle with that functional literacy level, it's 60% that struggle with a functional numeracy level.
Really?
Yeah. So it is an even greater challenge, and even though we don't have the detail of the new data, it is showing that even more so, that numeracy is now becoming a very significant issue across the board, not just for New Brunswick, but across Canada and in other countries too. Wow. So it seems like that's one aspect that's actually declining our numeracy levels generally.
Wow.
But can I just mention an example of one of the things you were saying? Because I was talking with a gentleman who had actually engaged in an adult literacy tutoring service like the one we're going to talk about elsewhere. I think it was in Moncton, and he had he had significant difficulties reading and writing, and he worked with that tutor for a number of years actually to improve his skills. And he was telling me that he had recently taken a road trip. Part of his success improving his reading and writing was to get his driving license. Mm-hmm. And then his most recent success was that he'd taken a road trip to Montreal from Moncton in New Brunswick. He'd planned his whole trip himself. He'd navigated himself. He read all the signs and whatever. And it was the first time that he had been outside the province.
Wow.
Because of the fear of getting lost.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it does give you a tremendous freedom mm-hmm. if you can read.
Absolutely.
I mean, if as opposed to if you couldn't read. I mean, you become isolated and alone, and it's a scary place to be. Yes. So I think this is you know, Charlotte County Reads is a very important initiative, and I think that we probably know people who struggle with reading and we don't even know it.
Right.
And those are the people who we really want to try to reach and it could be someone within your family, it could be a friend's family, it could be your grandmother who might only be 65 years old who can't read, and that could be encouraged. Yeah. So if you're ready, how sure. does Charlotte County actually, Charlotte County Reads, what actually is it, and how does it work?
Right. Well, it's a free one-to-one adult literacy tutoring service. So what happens is that our tutors are all volunteers. They have to make a commitment to 20 plus hours of training. So it's a significant commitment. And they get very specialized training on how to help people learn to read and to write and develop those skills. Once we have those volunteers trained, so we have them in a pool, and people who would like to take advantage of the service can ring a central number, and then they'll be referred to the tutor coordinator who matches students with tutors. Mm-hmm. So there's a certain amount of discussion that takes place between the potential learner and the tutor coordinator to establish what their current skills levels are and how we can build on those to help them develop their reading and writing skills, and also when they would like to meet and where they would like to meet, because tutors and learners meet basically at any time that's mm-hmm. kind of mutually arranged by them. So the good thing is that even people who are working can take advantage of the service because they can be tutored in the evening or at weekends or whatever. And some people choose to do it within their own communities, and we have locations within the community, each community in Charlotte County, where they can meet. And others choose to do it in a different community, to travel.
So the tutor doesn't show up at your door, and
oh, no.
There's none of that.
No.
And that's for, I suppose, for safety or
liability?
For both
parties.
Yeah,
for both parties,
right,
security. Yeah. But also because homes generally are not a great learning environment. There's right. too many other things going on, too many distractions. It's, you don't often have the right kind of environment in terms of, comfortable chairs and,
right.
the resources. And also, if you take yourself out of that, there's lots of distractions. If you're in a home, whether it be the learner or the tutor, there's always things to remind you about stuff you should be doing or right. whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, we now, in the olden days, we did used to meet in people's homes. We don't do that anymore, and we definitely don't do that within Charlotte County Reads. There's been a general movement away from that. So no, we have lots of great locations within each community where
right.
we can meet.
So within the last, say, year or so, you've trained quite a number of I mean, there's been quite a lot of interest to become a tutor, and so a number of people have been trained in various communities throughout Charlotte County.
Right.
And so we have quite a strong base, and so now what we want is to get the word out so that people who can use the services feel comfortable, you know, contacting us and actually doing it.
Yes, we want people to take advantage of this great service that's now available. We wanted to train tutors first, so that when potential learners came forward, you know, we didn't have to keep them waiting around then for months while we went through that process. So we do have a pool. I will say that the pool, we need tutors in the St. George and surrounding areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually already started a waiting list. I think there are 3 or 4 people on the waiting list so far. Once we get to about 6 or 8 names, then we can run another training course for more tutors. So we do need tutors in the East. Anybody who's interested in becoming a tutor should call me. And we can get that sorted. But yeah, we really want people to take advantage of the service now that it's available. So we're trying to get the word out to anyone who wants to improve their reading and writing, whether it be at whatever level they might be. As I say, there might be people who feel like they've either been out of the job market for a while and they need to brush up on those skills. Or, you know, they left school early and, you know, now feel like they're ready to continue their learning. Or there might be other people who, you know, do have significant challenges with their reading and writing and want to make that commitment to start the process of developing those skills further. It doesn't matter where you are on the continuum. The important thing is to give it a try.
Give it a try, yeah. Well, I suppose really with any of these kinds of initiatives, I guess the most immediate community that we live in is our family at home.
Right.
So if we have family members who could improve their reading skills by having a tutor, this is a great opportunity because it's free of charge.
It is.
And it is for adults.
It is, yes.
And so what does that actually mean? What is an adult?
What it means is that you have to be over 16 and you have to be out of the school system.
Okay.
So for most people that would mean 17 or 18, but there are young adults around at 16 who have dropped out of school and have no contact with the school system whatsoever now, and so we do look at those on a case-by-case basis. But so yeah, and definitely no upper limit. I worked with a gentleman who was 73 who wanted to improve his skills so that he could do more with his grandchildren. So there's definitely no upper limit.
Yeah. No, and I think, you know, I think there's no shame in this either.
No.
Because I think that people maybe be inhibited because it's embarrassing.
Right.
For some people to admit that they can't read. But this is a very safe, anonymous environment where there's no judgment, and it's a golden opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, it's really important for people to understand that this is not anything like school. It's nothing like, you know, the learning that they may have experienced before. It's very respectful, it's very non-judgmental, it's very friendly, relaxed environment, and people take control of their own learning. So they focus on topics that are important to them, and they drive their own learning at their own pace. So it's very, very different.
It's not really like a set curriculum where you have to read Dickens and then you have to read Jane Austen.
No. We're very, very lucky that we have a huge bank of resources, learning resources and teaching resources available to us. They were donated by Law Back Literacy New Brunswick. And so the tutors are trained to customize the learning programs to meet the needs of each individual. So every learning program is different.
Right.
It contains the kinds of things that they want to learn are different, but also how they learn them is different because we all learn very differently.
Yeah.
So it's a very tailor-made program to the individual.
So the Lawback sort of program really is what Charlotte County Reads is based on.
We're affiliated with them. Yeah.
So it's not a seat of the pants kind of a let's see if we can figure out. This is a true tried and true tested successful program that we are lifting and incorporating into our community.
Yes. I mean, Lawback Literacy in New Brunswick has actually been in operation for decades, and it's a very tested program. And what they have done is they've evolved over time. So originally, it was one kind of set curriculum that you went through, one approach, one model. But over time, as we've become more aware of different learning styles and different approaches to teaching reading, they have developed their model to include a very balanced teaching approach that includes all sorts of different methods. So they have evolved, but nevertheless, they're a reliable organization that have tangible success stories that they can talk about.
Well, it is the big challenge really is in connecting the people that need the service with the people who can deliver it.
Right.
And that's always the challenge, that bridge, the bridge over the River Kwai. It's always that bridge that's the key, and that's what we want to try to help to be by letting people know about this and to encourage people to give it a try.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have any advice on successful approaches to help our viewers to, encourage? Because a lot of times, if words can be put into their mouths, then they don't have to think about, well, now how do I go about this? So how does one go about, reducing the chances of people saying, no, it's not for me? Because I think that it's really for half the province.
I think part of it is about making it as relevant as possible and meaningful as possible. So you're not just learning for learning's sake. You're learning for a reason. Most people come forward, when they do come forward to take advantage of a service like this, it's because there's been a trigger in their lives. Something has changed that now makes it more important to them to, improve their skills. Sometimes, as we've talked about, sometimes that's the birth of a child and wanting to read to that child. Other times it's about recognizing that you want to do a different kind of work and your current skills are probably not going to help you get that different type of work. And other times it's, greater demands being made on you in the workplace. So there's a whole range, whole spectrum of reasons why people might come forward. And the important thing is that people understand that whatever that reason is, that's what's going to drive the learning program. And that they're going to be in the driving seat. They're going to be the ones controlling it. So if they don't like something that they're doing, they can say so, and the tutor will use a different approach. But I think the important thing is to understand that it's a complete spectrum. So it doesn't matter. We're all on that continuum somewhere. It doesn't matter where you are. We all have things that we're good at and things that we're not so good at, right? Yeah. I'm sure that you and I can both think of things that we're really horrible at. And just for some people, their challenges are around reading and writing, but they're absolutely phenomenal in other areas, in other skills. So I think we got to take the take that worry away in terms of what people might think and what they might expect when they get there.
Well, it's funny that what's going through my, how things go through my head, but I'm picturing a woman in this case who is a really good cook, and she can't, however, read the labels on the food boxes and everything. And so, I mean, she can, but it's really hard for her to make sense of it all.
Yep. And
I know that there are some people who, if you can't read the ingredients, don't buy it, because the ingredients, they might be this long, and you shouldn't eat that sort of thing.
Unpronounceable.
But people, that's just a really basic practical example that would probably move people in a direction of being able to make smarter choices in their food purchases and likely reduce their monthly food bill. And so that's just one simple example of how you can combat that sort of thing. And that's the kind of thing that you can discover at home. But there may be people too your friends who have a hard time. And so I think by encouraging them, it gives them a sense of not feeling quite so alone.
Right.
And it being a thing where they get to reach these conclusions on their own is really, they become really keenly interested in the learning process themselves, as opposed to, knocking them over the head, dragging them in and saying, learn.
Right.
That process no longer, well, it didn't work to begin with, and they finally figured that out.
No, I think it's really valid for friends, family, colleagues, to just make people aware that the service is available.
Yeah.
So, certainly you don't want to be browbeating anybody into coming forward, but oftentimes, and especially when you have a new service like this, I mean, the cry that every time I tell somebody about it, the cry that I hear is, I didn't know about that. I didn't know we had that here in Charlotte County. Well, that's, it's understandable. We haven't managed to get the word out yet. So I think just make people aware that the service is available. If you know of anybody that you think it might be useful for, just give them the details, and maybe just reassure them that it's a really relaxed, friendly environment that is going to be supportive.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Pat. That's really, I think people have really gotten good insight into Charlotte County Reads. Thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us today for another episode of Fundy Tidings. I hope you've enjoyed it and that you'll come back and see us again soon.